Red tape, roadblocks, and the runaround. A new UFO whistleblower is sounding the alarm on just how difficult it's been to report an unacknowledged special access program called Immaculate Constellation to Congress. Former U.S. national security official Matthew Brown sat down for an in-depth interview with investigative journalist Jeremy Corbell on his Weaponized podcast. Brown said he decided to tell his boss that he had stumbled upon a top-secret program that was gathering images and videos of UFO encounters from classified military servers. But when he went to his boss, the message was not well received.
Like, stop. Did you read this? And I don't answer, but I just look him in the eye and I look at the screen and I'm like, of course I read this.
That's how you know it exists.
And he definitely picked up on that, and he the conversation ended with him saying, delete it. And he left the room, and we never spoke of it again.
Brown says he didn't stop there. He went on to report IMCON to his boss's boss and to other higher-ups. He says still nothing happened. He eventually decided to seek whistleblower protection and submitted written testimony to Congress. And after a couple meetings with congressional liaisons, still nothing happened. So Brown decided to tell the State Department he's going to go public. He says his main concern at that time was his own safety.
I'm definitely under no illusions that the U.S. government in some capacity knows about me. I'm mainly concerned about foreign intelligence and their possibility of collecting on me. I'm in D.C., spy capital of the world. I was very concerned about that.
Brown says he was equally concerned that the systems put in place to help whistleblowers come forward and protect them seem to have failed him every step of the way. Joining us now is investigative journalist and co-host of the Weaponized podcast, Jeremy Corbell. Jeremy, welcome back. Matthew Brown really describes what he said was serious red tape when he was just trying to report what he saw. Why is that?
Yeah, it's even much bigger than that. I mean, Matthew Brown is an American patriot. And as journalists, George Knapp and I, we are pit bulls on this issue of protecting whistleblowers. Congress has made a show of this. They want whistleblowers to come forward. Well, here you go. So Matthew Brown has inside knowledge of the deception of our government by elements of the intelligence community. He has tried to raise the red flag. He has tried to tell people what's going on. And he's done everything in his power to do it the right way. And this was the best way now, is to come forward with journalists like me and George.
Yeah, but Congress has also made a big show of investigating UFOs and UAPs. I don't understand why they wouldn't be jumping on this.
Right. I think it's a dynamic process. I still want this process to work. And I have been fighting with Congress, really great allies in Congress and senators, to make this work. They have to allow people to be heard in open congressional hearings. That's the whole thing.
Do you think that part of the problem was that what Matthew Brown was describing in this Immaculate Constellation program sounded so far-fetched that people were just like, yeah, I don't believe it?
Not at all. Not at all. This was taken seriously from the very beginning, all the way up through as he brought it up to people's interest. So first of all, there's a difference between the Immaculate Constellation briefing versus the field report, which we successfully got onto congressional record at the last hearing. I brought that into Congress and got that on the record. So the difference is, the briefing is what he was first initially exposed to. That's what he raised the alerts about. That was the entry point to him and his extensive, long investigation into this. If you read the first part of what he submitted and what we got onto congressional record, it says this document is the result of a multi-year investigation into the subjects of UAP, technologies of unknown origin, and non-human intelligence. Nobody thought this was far-fetched. Everybody took it seriously.
And how did Matthew Brown get access to these documents? Does he say?
Absolutely. If people watch the first two parts of the interviews, you will see step by step. We walk through exactly what happened. At first, it was accidental exposure to the Immaculate Constellation.
So he just opened something that he, by accident, and saw something crazy inside, basically.
In fact, he was raising the alert that if this is an unacknowledged special access program, that it was filed in the wrong place. And then he felt threat that he had seen it and was seeking guidance after he got classes on how to deal with what they call spillage, which is where you see a compartmentalized program when you're not supposed to. This kid has done everything right, and he has not received the support that he should. And Congress should hear what he has to say, because right now they're in the dark.
So when he says he hasn't gotten the whistleblower protection to which he's entitled, and you agree with that, what has he not gotten in this? You know, he says he feels unsafe. Can you elaborate on that?
A little bit, I will elaborate on that now. But the main thing is, we have been told by our government, hey, you need to come forward. Here's the process to do it. You need to tell us what you know about non-human intelligence, about these UAP. And he's done that, but really there's no follow-up. There's no protections. He has received numerous kind of issues because of his accidental exposure. So what George Knapp and I are trying to do, not just as journalists, but as human beings, is we're trying to make sure that people follow through with those protections that people need to and want to come forward to inform Congress. And I'll tell you something, Elizabeth, that I think is really fascinating. If people really watch this, at one point, Matthew Brown said, "My blood ran cold." And this was a briefing that he was able to read the transcripts of while he was in position. And it was between the former head of Aero and Senator Rubio said about the legacy program. Well, what the hell has the executive branch been doing? Had they been running this for 60 years without congressional oversight? This is about the legacy UFO program. Yeah. And the fact is, they have. There's a cover-up. It's in the House, and Congress is pissed.
All right. Jeremy Corbell, something tells me we're going to be hearing a lot more about this.
Next week.
Next week, that's right. And by the way, Jeremy.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.